All right, we'd like to call this Finance Committee meeting to order. We have a couple of stragglers, they'll be here, I'm sure. Welcome back, everybody. It's our first Finance meeting from our short break, but well-deserved. First thing we have is assignment for request for council action. We have several. We have 18140 budget amendments, 18141 accept donation from Target Corp for the police department, 18142 accept donation from Stevenson Foundation Parks, 18143 resolution supporting state bike route 71, 18144 expenditure over $15,000 for First Energy Ohio Edison Street Department, 18145 amending 91704 water rates, 18146 increased expenditure for Cocosing Street Department, 18147 increased expenditure for Lake County Sewer Co. Street Department, 18148 approved water connection for 5312 Lake Road, Lafayette Township, 18149 2018 city auction, 18150 transfer of .2576 acres on Liberty Street to CIC, 18151 ODOT traffic signal maintenance agreements, 18152 grant application Ohio Public Works Commission, 18153 approved criteria for developer for City Hall parking structure, 18154 amending SPD1 design guidelines and conceptual development plan, 18155 application to establish revitalization district in downtown Medina, 18156 resolution urging Governor Kasich to invest budget surplus in local governments. Here. Number two, we have a presentation from Commissioner Adam Friedrich, Medina County Recycling Efforts Update.
All right, gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the time this evening. A couple of weeks ago, maybe a few weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago now, I met with Mayor Hamwell and Nino. We talked about a couple of different things, primarily the discussion centered around the decision to move forward with a mixed waste processing option that only included commercial waste. And as we talked about some of the numbers and figures and history, things like that, I don't know if it was my recommendation or theirs, I thought it might be good to present some of that history to this council and things that we've done in the direction we're moving. And I'll do that as I love numbers, so I'll do it as brief as I possibly can. I want to go back to the TAC, which I think met in it was prior to our approving the new plan, but they basically came out with three things. And those three things were, we want to recycle more what we call conventional recyclables. We want to decrease our costs. And at that point, they said we want to keep flow control. And as we move forward, really the only other thing that was added to that input that we had from folks was we also want ways to be involved, folks that wanted to have options of actively recycling as opposed to putting stuff at the curb and assuming it was going to be sorted. So that's what we use moving forward. If you go back to 2012, which was kind of our study year for when we looked at what our numbers were, we were at $61 a ton on our tipping fees. And that $61 a ton netted us what we in this room would call about 5,500 tons of conventional recyclables. So $61 a ton, we had 5,500 tons of conventional recyclables. Now, full disclosure, the contractor at the time also operated what was called Class 1, and that Class 1 is kind of the shrinkage, and then that becomes landfill cover. Again, it shrinks and it goes to landfill cover, but it still goes to landfill. And that was one that I think a lot of folks were like, we shouldn't count that. EPA allowed it, it was part of the contract, and they meant it. And the other part was the Class 4, which is the leaves and branches and so forth. So they operated everything at a cost of $61 a ton, and I know there was a cost of the Class 1 and Class 4, but as far as conventional recyclables, we had about 5,500 tons. So we approved the new plan, countywide new plan. There were 4 entities political entities that didn't approve the plan. This was one of them, but we had enough other folks to approve that the plan was approved. And if you remember, that plan was approved with 2 different options, kind of Plan A, Plan B. Plan A was kind of keep things like they were. Plan B was to eliminate flow control and move towards something else and an early rewrite of the plan. which we were willing to do at a cost of about $60,000 to rewrite the plan early. After meeting for a few weeks, a lot of input from Nino, folks from the other cities, Brunswick and Wadsworth. In essence, there was a vote at that work group to keep flow control, which meant to keep the current plan, and we'll look at a rewrite in 2000, and in 19, moving into 2020. And I say that because a vote to keep flow control equals a vote to pursue mixed waste processing. There's no reason to have flow control other than you want mixed waste processing. Because a mixed waste processing option for any sort of vendor is unattractive if you don't have flow control, if there's not some kind of guarantee that the stuff is coming. So again, 5,500 tons at $61 a ton. We wanted to keep flow control and we wanted to accomplish these other things. So now we fast forward to 2018, which is where we're at now. Our current tipping fees are $42 a ton, all right, $19 a ton less than where we are. We're getting annualized numbers, 3,500 tons in the countywide drop-off bin program. Montville Township has basically done a township-wide contract. They're getting around what would be the equivalent of about 700 tons annually through their curbside program. We also have folks in the townships who just through their hauler are paying for subscription curbside at around $1,400 a ton. Add those numbers together, we're at 5,600 tons. So now, given the other activities, we're at 5,600 tons, 100 tons more than we were in 2012, but at $19 less, all right? And honestly, that is consistent with what we've been putting forward through a difficult process and a delayed process of what we call sum of all parts. How can we look at all these different pieces and parts that are out there and make Medina County a better recycling county? And as we looked at the next step in this thing, we wanted a mixed waste processing option. And full disclosure, I live in the city of Medina. I would love to have a kick to the curb, no frills, no worry about recycling. But in today's recycling environment, that becomes horribly expensive. If you read the things on what China uses in their recyclables right now, they want close to zero contamination. The market has changed. And so I'm the guy, I'm here to tell you, I bag up my recyclables and I take them to whatever that old parking lot is across from Napa, probably once a week. By the way, my wife said she was going to do that, but the bags leak in her car and in the back of my truck. That's not a problem, so I end up taking them. So we're looking at the next steps. So the contract that we have in place, or that we're about to have in place, the one that we voted on, has not yet been signed, has guaranteed us 7,000 tons of conventional recyclables out of the waste stream. Brunswick is more than likely going to go to a curbside program through their contractor. That would net around $2,800 a ton. And just so everybody knows, that's at zero cost to the folks that send stuff across those scales, right? As is the Montville Township contract. Brunswick Hills, Litchfield, York are all looking at curbside programs. The net of those three would be about 1,000 tons. So if you look at the 5,600 tons that we have now, we add the 7,000 tons from the mixed waste processing, 2,100 tons from Brunswick, 1,000 tons from the other townships, we're over 16,000 tons. And the cost additional to that is going to be about $10. So we're going to go from $42 a ton to $52 a ton. We'll be at over 16,000, again, pieces and parts, 16,000 tons of recyclables. And we're still $9 less than we were in 2012. In addition to that, everybody knows the class 4 is no longer flow controlled. You can bring your leaves and sticks and branches anywhere. At one point that used to be flow controlled. That changed when we moved away from the old contractor. Additionally, the way we've set things up at the processing facility, government partners, the cities, townships, the parks, they can bring their class 4 at no cost. And the other thing that seems to be relatively popular is we now have the year-round option instead of the just events for the household hazardous waste and some of the specialty wastes. So I know there's concerns about a mixed waste processing option that doesn't include residential. I understand that. I wanted it as well. The options that we looked at this time did not make that cost effective. Will there be something in the future? There very well might be. I'm not going to guarantee it. But the picture I want to paint is that we said we were going to look at sum of all parts. And as we put these pieces of parts together, and the next three there, to get to 16,000 tons is pretty certain. Again, it's future, it's 2019, it's pretty certain. But it's working. I mean, we're doing what we said we were going to do, and we're doing what the TAC asked us to do. Keep your costs down, have more conventional recyclables, keep flow control, and then give other options for people to be involved, whether it be, the number of folks who willingly pay for curbside, subscription curbside in the township, that we can get to 1,400 tons is amazing to me. That are willing to just say to their, Kimball, Rumpke, whoever it is, hey, we want to pay more for a curbside program, and they do.
Well, let me ask you that question again about paying more for the curbside. What do they, again, you mentioned, what do they pay? Did you say like they pay $24 a ton? I mean, what do they pay? Like if I'm a township resident and I want curbside recycling, what do I pay per month?
So it's a two-part question. So one, Montville Township worked out a deal with a single contractor, so it's all one cost. All right, so they have garbage and subscription and curbside through one contractor. The other townships who at this point just get the garbage by subscription and have voluntarily said, I want curbside, I don't have a cost rate. It's something like $4 or $5 a month, I think, but don't quote me on that. And again, this is part of that, we want to be involved. Folks have just said, we want to recycle, and if it costs me $5 a month for a curbside program at my house in the township, I'm happy to pay that.
Because I mean, the difference is the sum of all parts and doing the curbside, it's still a cost of tonnage that I look at, they would have to pay anyway. So if they did nothing, it would all go to the CPF. Now that they're doing recycling on the curbside, that cost should be added to what's going to the CPF, so they know really how much per ton of trash we're
But
paying.
it's not crossing the scale, so we.
I know, it's not crossing, but you're still
There are some costs associated with it, but again, so, from my perspective, if we eliminated flow control and the CPF was a transfer station or whatever that is, and every township instituted a curbside program, the only thing we'd be responsible for in the CPF fees are the things that the state mandates that we do, money for this program, education, and so forth. I understand you're saying it's not no cost, but it's no cost to folks who send stuff across those scales.
I guess the other question, I mean, like you mentioned, and we hear a lot, and you probably hear the same thing, and people want the single stream recycling, but they want the convenience. There's a cost to convenience, I guess. And we don't, the cost right now is going up to $52 at least a ton for convenience, but it's not really recycling anymore residential. Like in the city, what do we have, 12,500 tons are still around there?
Yes.
Residential trash, and the rest of it, the other 12,500 is commercial or whatever, that go still over the go over the CPF to go over the scale. So I understand, I guess it's a tough dilemma. We've been doing it a long time. We're still not where we really want to be. Even if we get to 16,000, that's probably only 13% total. So we're not really, 8 is what?
I think it's a little bit under 9%, 8.75%. Is there 140,000 tons?
Oh, it's okay, it's 140,000
Based on
tons.
140,000 tons?
Yeah, 140,000, somewhere around there.
8.75%, I believe.
How do you get there? 16 divided by 16,000 tons of 140, you're over 10%.
You can't count Brunswick. You don't have Brunswick in. I wouldn't count Brunswick. Brunswick's vacillating.
I mean, but again, it's still recyclable. I mean, that's how we were forced to do our calculations. Anything that gets recycled. And again, let's face it, we're only talking about this.
So it's 11.4.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So even if you count it all, it's 11.4. And I guess the question that we've always had is, we should do better. And I know you're trying to do better, but that's really the crux of, I think, everybody on council here is we got to do better.
And just so you know, and you could, get somebody else to give you this besides me, these 25 and 40 and 50% numbers don't happen. And if they are happening, there's somebody who's either massaging the numbers based on changing denominators and so forth, Or you're in California where you're spending, north of $200 a ton for a tipping fee.
And we do understand the articles that came out that recycling with China cutting back and wanting pure recyclables. It's more difficult to ship all those recyclables to them. They're not taking them. What do we do with it? And recycling, the cost of it is really not, there's no money to do it. You're not making any money.
Agreed.
But there's other fuel things that you could do, and I don't know what the money is making pellets for fuel, just like they have in the townships. I would assume those corn things where you burn your corn, they could burn other things, but.
Well, that's what Vexter does, and,
Right.
and they do it relatively successfully. They have a good market base for the
But
product.
I think the whole point is that I'm sure we're all still getting talked about, well, how come we can't recycle more? We got to do better, and there's a cost to it, I agree, but we got to be more creative. I don't know what the answer is, but that's just always been frustrating.
Yes, sir.
I've got a question and a comment. When I used to work out in Montville Township and was at an area where Kimball picked up the recyclables where people dropped off in the bins, talked to him one time because his truck broke down, so he was there for a while. So I talked to him. And I said, boy, these, you come once a week. He could sometimes become twice a week because it's so, so popular. And I said, how much of this recyclables actually get recycled? And he goes, well, that's, he said, that's a non-starter when you're talking about recyclables. He said, I can tell you the facility we go to in Summit County, probably 40% of the stuff we take there end up in a landfill because they're so contaminated that nobody's going to recycle. So, and I just.
Just so you know, the number we use is 70% recyclable, so that means 30 is still contamination, so that's in the ballpark.
Right. And I don't know if the public actually realizes that to the extent that your not your water bottles, but your pop bottles, your mayonnaise jars and stuff, that for them to actually use it, you actually have to wash them out and clean them out, and most of them require that you remove the paper products on them. So there's, misnomer there that just because you're taking and dumping it in the recycle bin, that's all going to be recycled, because it's not.
100% agree.
Yeah, okay. Not that we still shouldn't try, I'm not saying that we should.
I mean, I say, I fight in my own garage, I have the big bag goes to recyclables, the little bag is garbage, and I'll walk through and one of my knucklehead sons will have thrown a plastic bag in there, take it out and go in there and tell them I'm not supposed to do it. So my stuff's contaminated too.
Well, I think the national average for is 43% of recyclables can't be recycled. That's the average nationwide because they're dirty. People throw stuff in that shouldn't be, and dirty is one of the biggest ones. The one thing that I think has been missing from this, if you set aside all the issues that you just detailed for us, and I know it exists in a degree somewhere, is, and the reason I think we continue to get a lot of questions is, I have not seen an overt education program about two things, and I guess one would be recycling, just in the raw terms we talk about. But as important or more important is waste reduction, education toward waste reduction, because we always talk about tonnage of what we put in the landfill, we talk about what percentage we can recycle. But the problem begins with the accumulation of things that we have to throw away. And so the education component of that, in a lot of programs I've looked at, is critical, because if you can reduce the waste at its origin, we reduce accumulating certain waste products, it's like we have an issue, but we're addressing we're addressing put a cast on a leg part of it, not that there's a broken leg. And I've not seen, a really aggressive education program or how to reduce your waste that you put at the curb. And how do you clean, and specifically about cleaning up what you throw in those bins, because I use the bins as well. And it's amazing to me, and I said this before, how much when you do recycle, how much you have. Because I can fill boxes and boxes with recyclables and only have one trash can, at the curb. But the reduction of the waste, which is pre-cycling, and then an education program coupled to that, those are the things I think that if you want to go from 11% or 8%, whatever it is we're really at, you could begin to boost those up. And like I said, I've seen programs where that's as big a part of it as the program itself, is so that people understand their responsibility and then what they can do to not have so much stuff that you put out at the curb. And the other thing I think for us in particular in the city is we have a program. I saw it when I was driving up, when I was coming up here. We have a program where you can put your couch out, or you can put 6 cans out. So if you're not intellectually into understanding why you recycle, you don't have there's no lever, there's not a big motivator, because you're not limited to a can or 2 or 3. You can fill the curb and we pick it up. So that part of the program, I think, also is not something that helps us promote. Not that we don't want to do it, but it doesn't help us promote recycling. Thanks, Adam, for your explanation. I
Just
appreciate
2 comments.
it.
One, we have education dollars and we spend those dollars. If there's something we can do, I mean, I hate to say it, we try to be as overt as we possibly can with announcements and what's going on. And, I mean, the general public, for the most part, has other things that draw their interest and time and so forth. If there's things we can spend our education dollars on to include the education on packaging and so forth, I think, Beth and Amy are always looking for new opportunities, so I think that'd be a great discussion. Obviously, we have a whole lot less control of the packaging that folks buy and more control over what they do with it after it's in the garbage. So I think that's where the focus of the education dollars would go. But again, always looking at, and honestly, Beth and Amy are real good at looking at programs that are used throughout the state
Right.
to determine if there's something else that works better, if there's something else that could work here. The history of Medina and flow control and everything else. It's, garbage is a different animal here than it is probably anywhere else. And, SCORE and the guys from the EPA will tell you that.
Well, I'd like to compliment you and your staff, Amy and Beth, for involving the different communities and accepting the input and have it be an ongoing, fluid challenge for the county. And deeply appreciate you coming to give us this explanation.
And to that point, the discussions that I had with Nino, the mayor, if the city of Medina has something they want to do specific to the city of Medina, whatever it is. One, again, Amy and Beth and whoever they contact are fantastic resources. And 2, there's dollars available to subsidize with some of that. I think there's a certain level of mistrust for what goes on, and the cities aren't incorporated enough, and we'll, hope to get past that eventually. But if there is a direction, there is absolutely, dollars and assistance and advice and things that are available to whoever wants to do something. I mean, again, if you go down to Montville Township, you'll find out how much we were able to help them with getting their curbside, their county or township-wide curbside going.
Is there a timeline about with the $10 yet, or is that not been set yet, or is it still?
Not set yet. There's not a timeline. If there is one, I don't know about it, so.
Okay. Any other questions?
I do have one question with regard to the current recycling program where we take it to the bins. What does that cost the county or the city? And what component, how much of a component is that in the tonnage charge?
So of the $42 a ton, I'm not going to answer that question. I know the program itself annually is in the neighborhood of $600,000. But if that $42 a ton, I should have brought a sheet, that $42 a ton is broken out to the penny on what everything goes to, on this program mandated by the state and so forth. So I can get you that information. I'll virtually guarantee Amy has it broken out, and if I have Nino's email address, Mayor's email address, I can get you that sheet down to the penny. It's all public record stuff, so I'll do that.
Nino, anything?
No, I don't believe so. I know we've discussed this in our health, safety, sanitation. It would cost the city sanitation department $1.5 million to get started with a curbside program, and it's, at this point, cost prohibitive.
You could contract it out.
Now, I'm really gonna tell you how I feel.
Mayor, anything else you have?
No, thanks, Ed.
All right, Adam, thanks a lot.
Thank you
for
for your
coming.
time.
Thank you.
I'm not sticking around for the rest of your.
Ah, come on.
But you're welcome.
This is the fun part.
Okay, we have budget amendments, 18-140. We have 2018-031 bicentennial sales and donations.
These are sales of the coloring books and other items that they're selling, and then there's a donation from Ms. Molly's where we appreciate that. We need to approve from council now to be able to spend this money on food bicentennial.
Okay,
Move to approve.
Second.
any further discussions?
President, I want to extend from the Smalleys their thanks to this council for helping them with the money, or with the event that they had at Miss Molly's, and just to let you know that his donation is 100% of the receipts that he received.
That's good. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 2018 concrete 2018-028 concrete installation for bicentennial bike rack.
Apparently, this was a donation from the clinic, but again, we need authorization to spend it for the bike rack.
Move to approve.
Second.
Where's the bike rack going?
There's three of them, I think. One's by the interurban, one's on West Washington. Is it West Washington?
Yeah,
Yes.
the one by the public restrooms.
And run by the
They were
public.
installed today.
Okay.
The bike racks were?
Yeah, I saw the interurban one was done.
Yeah, cool.
Hot off
If I
the
had a
press.
bike,
Got to do some more bike.
I could try to.
All in favor? Opposed, motion carries. 2018-027 donation from Target for National Night Out.
I'd ask that we discuss this in conjunction with item number 4, because it's two separate votes, but you kind of have to vote the same way, because you can't really do the appropriation and not accept the donation, or vice versa. This is to spend the money, which is kind of, obviously, if we're going to spend it, we have to accept it.
And this is for the one for the night out. What is that? That's
The National Night Out, and it's the event we held on August 7th in Target's parking lot.
right? And the next one for the Stevenson Foundation. I guess, is that, you're gonna have to talk about that one, Keith.
No.
He was talking number four.
Number 4 on the agenda is accept donation from Target.
Yep.
You want me to do a motion first, to accept the donation, and then do the budget amendment?
I just wanted to have the discussion at the same time, because, like I said,
We probably should do that.
however you guys want to do it.
So 18141, accepting a donation for Target. We just talked about that.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And then 2018-027 donation from Target for National Night Out.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay. 2018-029 donation from Stevenson Foundation.
I want to do the same thing here, but with item number 5 on your agenda, which is accept donation from the Stevenson Foundation. So same thing, we have this donation for renovations at Raymond Park, and then we have to accept it, and we also have to approve the expenditure.
Okay. So 18142, accept donation from Stevenson Foundation.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And 2018-029 donation from Stevenson Foundation.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 2018-030 Parks and Cemetery adjustments. Jansen?
This is to cover some of the negatives that we had, increases and reductions in various lines, as well as move some of our carry forward around for some park projects.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 8584 Service Department, high grass.
I want to reverse those two words.
That's,
Grass high.
Go ahead.
that's mine.
Yeah, Mr.
Thank you,
Procol.
Mr. President. This is a request for $2,500 more dollars. To date, we've expended almost the $7,000 PO that we had from May. The program's been very busy. We've sent out 56 letters, numerous phone calls and point of contacts, face-to-face, and we have 87 mowing jobs to date. And it just seems like by this time, usually the grass browns out, and it's not happening.
Move to approve.
Second.
Question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 2018-032 Parks, Mountain Bike, Bridge and Trail. All right.
This is a donation from CAMBA, the Cleveland Area Mountain Bike Association. It's a reimbursement for a project that we did. We work with a volunteer group that maintains the mountain bike trails, and they come up with projects, and they do fundraisers that they run through the Cleveland Area Mountain Bike Association. Once we complete those projects, they then reimburse us.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, now we're at 18143, resolution supporting a state bike route 71. Jansen? Or is this Pat? Or is this somebody else?
The mayor.
Yeah, I think I had Pat look at this to make sure he didn't have any objections to whatever the route was that they selected. but the state of Ohio is looking to designate bike routes throughout various counties, and this is their request for well, the portion that's in Medina City.
This goes down Route 3, that, is that the, is that, yeah, Route 3?
It comes down Huntington, across Grande to Jefferson, then south to Broadway, to Grant Street, to 3, and then out Sturbridge to Ryan, to back into the trail there in,
How'd they pick that route? Because it's weird that they're gonna go down Grant Street.
Why?
Well, this is, it seems like a shorter distance if you get to the square.
It's South Street, if that makes you feel any better.
Oh, is that, okay, okay. Well, still, it seems like you'd want to go through more populated areas instead of residential areas, I don't know.
We are building that bike path down North Court Street right now.
I know, but I'm just telling you, if you want to go down,
South Court.
you'd want to go down through the town and see the historic areas.
Oh,
yeah, I don't think you can put a bike path through town because of the parking.
No.
Can you?
Right, this is the state's map,
Yeah.
not
You're probably
not what
right.
the
No, I mean, I
city-
think that was the reason,
They did around
We
it.
got it.
right?
Could have been.
I think that's the reason.
It just seemed like,
I'll let the people on South Street know, John.
it's not that I'm against it, I just think it,
Drive through the neighborhood.
maybe they didn't want people driving their bikes down there.
I question the age of this map, though, because I'm looking at it, Huntington Street doesn't go all the way through, as it actually does on this map anyway, and they come down Huntington to Grande and then over. Well, why wouldn't they just follow Huntington all the way down, since they're gonna end up on Ryan Road anyway? Why not just take that, down that path, follow 42, and then pick up Ryan, instead of,
These are complicated questions you ask.
I'm sorry.
You're asking
I-
questions that nobody here can answer.
So I don't know, I just question the path that they've chosen.
Apparently it's a-
Yeah, it's keeping them, the path that I suggest does keep them off the square, we could reroute it that way, but if you're gonna end up on the south end of town, and you're starting on the south end of town, or on the west end of town, I should say, why travel east and then come back west? I don't know.
Get more exercise. I don't know.
Yeah.
want them to go through the square, spend money on the city businesses on the square.
Well, but they're really not going through the square, that's just it. They're going on Broadway, it looks like.
Well, that's by the courthouse,
Yeah,
that's the
Maybe.
square.
maybe.
All right, well, it is what it is, so are we supporting it or not?
I'm good.
Okay.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 18144, expenditure over 15,000, First Energy, Ohio Edison Streets. Is this Nino or
Thank
Pat?
you, Mr. President. So this goes back to last October. There was a gentleman driving a vehicle, crashed into a pole at 540 East Liberty, didn't own the vehicle, I believe there was an OBI involved, PD responded, went through the Unicourt system to the law department. The costs incurred for the repairs, $15,629.40. Well, we didn't get any invoicing from Ohio Edison First Energy until March, the catalog started of 2018. And as I looked into it, you know, they said that, I got a handwritten note that said, we've not been able to reach the owner or the driver. So I called the claims department, we're going back and forth. So you have a driver, and you have a police reporter, why should the city be paying this? Talked with our law department, because we do have that agreement with the ESIP. Unfortunately, we have to cover this and then potentially seek reimbursement for, you know, those costs incurred if possible. This would be another situation like we were involved in at the Broadway and Liberty, with that $25,000 master cabinet being demolished, and we ended up paying for that.
So are you seeing the likelihood of reimbursement and,
It's very minimal at this point. I did try to make contact with the folks from the numbers I had. I didn't spend a whole lot of time to date trying to track down the folks, but I may spend a little more time in the near future trying to figure out clearing the area. But again, we need to pay this. I did get a second notice from First Energy. This is above our border control limits, so that's why I brought it here.
questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Aye. I had to abstain on that one. Not because I was in the accident or anything, it's just represent First Energy. 18145, amending section 91704, water rates. Keith?
Thank you.
We discovered recently that we had inadvertently deleted some sections of our water rate ordinance back in 2007, specifically sections C, D, and E. Talked to Kathy about it, and there wasn't any discussion about deleting these. It wasn't the intent to delete these. C states that we will charge an extra 45% for out-of-town customers. D states that we determine our own reading schedule, and E is our bulk water rates. We have continued to charge the extra 45% since we did not think it
Clerical, it was just an error.
deleted. Right. So I would like to ask the council to please put these sections back and to make that retroactive to November of 2007 so that no one can claim that.
To the extent we can, we will.
Can you make it then?
Well, I guess the question is, I think it was a Scribner's error, let's call it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't no intent, and there was no legislation taking it out. It just wasn't shown in the books, but it was still there.
That's our view.
Well, that's what happened. So,
Good.
any other questions?
Move to approve and retro to 2007.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 18146, increased expenditure for closing PO 2018-459, streets. Patrick.
That's actually my.
Oh, Nino.
Yeah.
All right, you can take this one.
Council's consideration to increase this PO, the original purchase order was from Road Control for $15,000, they're asking for additional $20,000 approved for asphalt materials, some of which placed in potholes, actually majority of it's placed in potholes around the city street system, and as well as some minor patching that the city street department does with our roller and our equipment.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 18147, increased expenditure for Lake County sewer for the streets. Nino.
Thank you, Mr. President. Similar to last year, we have a campaign to really concentrate on our storm sewer infrastructure and the repairs of the same. We've had numerous complaints, and responding to the same, we have several that are large and deep, and this is to contract Lake County sewer with routing. These are for the pipe systems that are deeper and more difficult to get to grout the joints.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Number 11 is 18148, approved water connection at 5312 Lake Road, Lafayette Township. Nino?
That is also mine. So we were approached, we've had discussion with the owner about this property. This is right outside the city limits, and in that area, I think Patrick has the map with the addresses. It's in and out, there's dual jurisdiction. This property is outside, right outside the city limits. The folks had a water well, and it was not potable water. It was not digestible at all. It was deemed, the well was deemed, it just wasn't providing water for the folks there that lived there. So they approached the city, and I guess there's an ordinance that was dated back in 1989 that Greg looked at, our law director, and no one outside the city limits is permitted to tap into the city water system. So looking into that, we have 50 such taps that are currently in the system since that time. So I don't know if that dropped off from when the updates took place in the housekeeping with respect to the ordinances, but we're asking for consideration as these folks were not able to use that tap water from the well and need to have water service.
So what are you asking for? You want water service, but then you gave us a spiel about you can't have connections outside the city.
That was for the law director, so I mean, we had a discussion about that, and I believe that needs to be addressed in this discussion.
I think we found two conflicting parts of the code. Needs to be cleaned up, reference. This particular house, it's on Lake Road, our water line's there's no other water line, so there's no effort on our part. They go ahead and pay for the tap. We get to charge $40.
So the question is, are you asking us to repeal a 1989 ordinance? Or what are you asking?
I guess it needs to be cleaned up, because we've had taps in the water system since that time.
Maybe this particular one, just get permission to.
I thought in the past, council just authorized it on a
Well, he just brought up a thing that nobody knew about from 1989. We've always passed it and connected, but they're saying that we can't, we have a conflicting ordinance because we're passing it to connect it, but we have an ordinance from 1989 that says we can't.
917 talks about what we charge people for it.
Right.
919 says we can't tap outside.
Right.
So.
So we gotta get rid, we gotta
Sounds like
get,
a contradiction there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
so we gotta get rid of 919 as part of the motion, is to repeal. Now, I don't have it in front of me. Is 919 the whole
Yeah.
section, or?
Yes, sir.
No.
That's right. It's down at the bottom.
So why don't I
919
draft,
it's penalty.
Why don't I draft an ordinance that attempts to fix this so we can not act contrary to previous ordinance?
That would be good.
That would be nice.
And then would approve
And then
this
we
tap
can-
in,
yeah, can we
so
do
these
this
people can get
individual tap?
water.
Yes, we could do that.
And once this is done, do you want these to come back to you for out-of-town tap-ins?
I guess we just know it's happening, I guess. We don't have that many all the time. I mean, I think it's one a year, maybe, not even. So it's okay. You guys want to learn about that? I think I do.
That's fine.
Okay.
We're good either way.
All right. Okay.
You're on.
Is there a motion?
No, so moved.
Second.
Okay, and Mr. Huber, whenever you get that to us, we'll correct that error in the code.
Yes, sir.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 12, 18149, 2018 city auction. Mr. Pacoli.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is our annual auction. We're asking for permission. The list will be compiled for the September 10th meeting to be viewed and passed by council. The law director did preview the contract with the auctioneer and has approved it contingent upon the city council approving the auction as well.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item 13, 18150, transfer of .2576 acres on Liberty Street to the CIC. Kimberly?
Thank you, Mr. President. In 2017, the city entered into an agreement with the Medina City Schools to create a tax increment financing district, which will help offset the cost of the future parking facility near Medina City Hall by capturing the property tax revenues of the new construction within that district. In an effort to move forward with a downtown redevelopment project, the city completed a lot split of the said 0.2576 acres that fronts West Liberty, essentially between Sully's and the courthouse. And this request is just to discuss the city's willingness to transfer that property to the Medina City Development Corporation, also known as our CIC, so that they can issue the RFQ to redevelop the site. And the project will allow for mixed use, which includes retail on the first floor and office and/or residential on the upper floors. In your packet, you have attached plat of the survey that was filed with the Medina County Recorder's Office. And for Councilwoman Laura Parnell-Cavy's benefit and the new Councilman Eric's benefit, the Medina City Development Corporation is made up of 3 members of council, which is Jim Shields, John Coyne, and Paul Rose, the mayor and myself, so council does have control over the CIC. We have 2 plus 2 non-voting members. So we wanted to see what councils, if they're interested in having this be a CIC-led project. Thank you.
So questions?
I am 100% in favor of going to CIC. I think that was the reason, first of all, I think it was the reason that we created it, the discussion, one of the main reasons in the first place, so that we would have the ability to proceed with projects of this nature. And this project in particular is of a special nature, really, because of all that's been entailed as we have, removed buildings and committed to the parking deck. And I think that the development of that piece of property will in itself probably be, is almost of historic proportions in the downtown. What will be built there and the impact that will have on the economy downtown, both in businesses and in particular, I think, in the residential possibilities for the construction. is just a great addition to the downtown. And I think the only way to go forward with this in both a timely and an effective way, so that we get the project done and it ends up being what we want it to be, and we have some other things I think to decide along the way here, is to transfer this to the CDC so they can move forward. And for questions, I think the people had questions were raised when we created this. I remember the meetings that we had. Questions were raised about this, but the control, which Kimberly just mentioned, is this organization is controlled by city council and by the city. So there's no fear of it, running, running off the track. So yes, I'm 100% in favor of it.
The only question I have is that, I'm all 100% in favor of this. We as a body and an administration, my understanding is still have, when we do split these parcels off, or is it maybe sold as one parcel, whether it's going to be a ground lease or a ownership for sale. And I think we need to make that decision.
We talked about that in the CIC pretty extensively. I think we're all leaning towards the ground lease just to maintain control.
Control, yeah.
And if there's ever any issues with the project, we were able to take back the project a little quicker than through the normal legal process.
Right.
So right now, I think we're leaning towards the long-term ground lease.
Doesn't the ground lease, and I don't, not as well versed as you are, but doesn't the ground lease more appealing to the developer? Is that-
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Ownership's always the best, but again, the ground lease has a long enough term and it can be financeable, so they can get their loans. It doesn't really matter.
Okay, I'm in favor of it.
I was just going to ask, what about Porters? Because this is a piece of property that includes Porters?
Yeah, it will take the Porter's building. We've talked to them from square one and told them if they have an interest in keeping the business, we can either put them in an area of the parking deck, set aside an area for them, or in the upfront retail. Any of the discussions I've had with them are, that may be the time that they make the determination to move back south and not continue to be here, because that's where they want to end up retiring. I don't remember the exact southern state, but where their family still is. And again, those options are still open, but.
Does that mean short-term, though, they'll be writing their rent check to CIC as opposed to the City of Medina?
Once the ownership changes, yes. And I have two comments or two questions. The first is I'm very concerned, as this process has been going on with the issues with the tariffs and things, the cost of construction has been skyrocketing. So I'm very concerned of when it goes out to bid, what the number's gonna come back at. So we have to just be mindful of that, because we have no control over that. And the second thing.
Of the parking deck, you're saying?
Yes.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And the second thing is Kimberly may not like this, but I would like to see the city just get reimbursed the cost that they put up front to do all this, so that comes back, and then the rest of the money, of course, goes to the CIC as far as the ground lease rents and things like that. I think we should be made whole as a city, because it's really the taxpayers' dollars that we should get back. And I don't think it's a large number, but I still think it should come back.
So you mean for the cost for the land?
No, I'm talking about the cost of, because we've owned that land for, I don't know how long. It's been, you may know, 30 years, 40 years?
A long time.
It's been since 85.
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, the cost to do the lot split that we had to do, the cost of the transfer, it's just recording the deed, of course. But, and then anything else that we had to incur costs along the way, just so that the money goes back where, it should go as far as the city taxpayers. Because once the CIC takes it over, it's in the CIC nonprofit world and it stays in there, so.
We covered that under the TIF.
The reimbursement?
Yes.
I guess we did.
Yeah, I thought so.
Well,
Yeah,
is it
you're
the
right.
lots, but also to benefit the parking deck as well?
It's to benefit everybody. But I guess
I guess the question is, how much does it cost, and then we can look at the reimbursement
Right.
from the CIC.
No, you're right. I remember
We don't know what
during the
that
discussions of
cost
TIF
was.
that we would be reimbursed for the cost of forming the TIF and doing all that,
Right.
that the money will come back to the city. So I think you're probably right, it is covered. But again, my only concern is that we get this moving just to make sure what the cost associated with construction is going to be, because I'm just a little worried about that. I haven't lost sleep yet, but it's getting close.
Yeah, but they did sign a new agreement with Mexico, so.
Yeah.
I don't know how much
The chips
stuff-
are starting to fall in place. Maybe we'll get lucky with
It's all about the steel,
Yeah,
right?
that's what I'm saying.
You are a
Hey, I
dreamer.
grew up in steel, I can always.
It's always about the steel. All right, any other questions? Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So if we can get a deed drafted up, and then we can start that process and do the transfer. 18151, ODOT traffic signal maintenance agreements. Who's this, Patrick?
It's me, yeah. ODOT has approached us, actually for a couple of years now. They're interested in having the city take over maintenance responsibility for 2 of their traffic signals. One of them at 42 in Grande Strongsville, or Stonegate, which is near Home Depot, and the other one at 18 in Foot. They're willing to pay the city a maintenance fee of $1,300 per year for each signal. In addition, they will continue to pay the power cost, the electricity cost. Part of the agreement, if we ever incur an expenditure in excess of $5,000, they would cover the extra there. The city currently maintains, I believe it's 38 traffic signals, so 2 more is not a big burden. On average, talking to our street department, we spend $200 to $300 per year per signal. So $1,300 a year more than covers our annual costs. I think the idea from ODOT's, that extra 1,000, whatever, would be for any kind of equipment failure that's unexpected, which could happen at any of our signals next week, or might not happen for 10 years. But the idea is that that's what that extra money is for.
Now, these 2 are currently located, these are outside the city limits.
Both outside the city limits, correct. The one by Home Depot, though, is part of the city's coordinated system. Well, it will be when our 42 project is done. In other words, it's connected to our other signals on Court Street for timing purposes. The one on Foot 18 will be when that 18 project gets done, whenever it gets done.
So are we just assuming their rights under their easements? How do we have rights to go fix things outside of our city?
That's a good question, I don't know.
I mean, because we must be assuming their rights to fix it? Because, I mean, we can't just go out in a township and say, oh, we're taking this, we're fixing it, and, I don't know. Or assume.
Section 4 says, in consideration of mutual promises, blah, 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 ODOT grants to the city right of entry upon ODOT's right-of-way for the purpose of maintaining the signals described in this agreement. I think that's the answer to your question.
As long as everything's within that right away, and I assume it should be. The electric and all that, I can't imagine there'd be something that's gonna be problematic. Okay, I just asked the question.
No, that's.
Patrick, you see this as a benefit?
I think we'll make a little bit of money on it. It's not, I don't think that's the purpose, but on average, I mean, either of these signals could be hit by lightning next week.
What if somebody hits the pole in a car?
Well, we hope they have insurance, I guess.
Well, Nino's showing us earlier today that that's not always the case. Yeah. All right, well, I mean, there's a risk.
Yeah, it'll, Pat, the one at Grand Boulevard, that's gonna be brand new, right? Because that's being installed right now as part of the project.
Yeah, neither one of these has any kind of mechanical issues.
I'm sure this is building goodwill with ODOT, so if we need something in the future, they would be more than willing to cooperate
Yeah.
with us.
And the one thing Mr. Huber pointed out, this is not
That was a question.
Yes,
will this help our relationship with ODOT in the future?
Yeah, ODOT be more willing, if we need something, to work with us?
I don't know that.
That's a no.
Depends.
Small little.
They did invest 22.
Yeah, they did invest money.
$2
Yeah,
million.
I just want to make sure
So
we're all.
it'd be goodwill on our part.
Yeah. Okay.
Move to approve.
These agreements have specified term limits, it's not a perpetual, I think it's every 2 years. If we're not happy, we can bow out of it.
All right, any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Patrick. 18152, application for grant assistance for the OPWC. Patrick?
This is our annual grant application to the Ohio Public Works Commission for Issue 1 funds. This year, we're recommending we do 2 bridge/culvert projects, one on North Broadway. This is the one just south of East Union Street. And the second, the Spring Grove Bridge, which is between Friendship and Union. Combined cost of those two is approximately $700,000, and we were eligible for $477,979 in grant funds.
Questions?
And that we would be at the mercy of ODOT again as far as scheduling?
No, these are, all the Ohio Public Works funds are 100% our control.
So, especially the...
Just like Guilford.
Yeah.
Guilford was not. Guilford is ODOT.
Well, I was going to say, that was ODOT. But so, since the one between Union and Friendship wouldn't impact Sydney Finn,
Right.
we would have control of
We would.
when that
we
was
would. The
scheduled
only-
then.
If we approve this and get the grant, it doesn't come into effect till the start of the next state
Sure.
fiscal year, which is July 1st. So we can't really start bidding it till July 1st, so it's unlikely we could do it next year. It would have to be
The following.
2020.
Okay, thank you.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 18153, criteria for the developer City Hall parking structure, job number 1030. Patrick?
Okay, earlier this year, council approved ordinance 5318, which directed us to do a qualification-based selection process to select a criteria developer for the parking structure. We did do that. I think we received responses from 5 firms. We evaluated those and are recommending, we find Desmond Associates to be the most qualified and recommending that we enter into an agreement with them to act as our criteria developer for the project. I would note Desmond is the same firm we used back in 2008, 2009 for the courthouse parking deck. They did a very good job then, and anticipate they will with this one as well.
Questions?
What's a geotechnical investigation?
We will have to do a soils investigation of that site so that they can design the foundation. They'll test the soil, and take some boring samples. And that kind of thing.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 18154, amending SPD 1, design guidelines and conceptual development plan. Jonathan?
Yes, thank you. As you said, this is a proposal, this is passing along the recommendation by the Planning Commission from their July 12, 2018 meeting, which was a request by an applicant to amend the Special Planning District Design Guide, Special Planning District number 1 Design Guidelines and Conceptual Development Plan. This is the Special Planning District that is kind of where Acme's planning to go at some point, and MMHA has developed the senior housing at the northwest corner of High Point and South Court Street. The Special Planning District development has specific development conceptual plan and guidelines that act as the zoning code for the area encompassed by the Special Planning District. The applicant, who is here represented by Ms. Mary Ann Chandler, requested amending the guidelines to permit a specific development on the remainder of the residentially designated property of the overall Special Planning District, which would be approximately the northwest corner of the 40 acres that's encompassed by the Special Planning District. Specifically, they wanted to amend sections C.2, C2, 3, 4, and 6, and add a new subsection C.2, C7. These changes would change out, deal with the outline of specific accessory uses, lot and yard requirements and density standards permitted in the sub-district C of the Special Planning District, as well as move the areas designated as the various sub-districts in the Special Planning District. It can basically move a line to have a little bit larger of a sub-district C in the northwest corner. That's all in your RCA. At the July 12, 2018 meeting, Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission did recommend the requested amendments to the City Council. And in your packet, you have the Planning Commission recommendation, the staff report packet, and the Planning Commission meeting minutes. So this would go through a normal public hearing legislative process as any text amendment or map amendment to the zoning code would require. So the Finance Committee tonight, a minimum 30-day public notice of a public hearing in front of City Council, with anticipated City Council public hearing on October 9th, and then ordinance review October 22nd.
And what was the discussion of the type of project they're going to do to make these changes? So they already have something in mind and designed, most
They do.
likely.
It's a production, one of the large national production building townhomes, 3-story townhomes.
Townhomes with 8 per, was this 8 per acre? Is that what? the
They would
density
be
was?
increasing the density from 6 units per acre to 8 units per acre, which is equivalent to the the density allowance in the existing R4 zoning district and the C3 zoning district
So
in the city.
what is this, in just layman's terms, how many more units are you building in this area?
So if you had 8 units, under 8 units per acre, you get 64. Otherwise, you'd have 48 under 6 units per acre. The MMHA project is 48 units, and that was done with 8 acres. So we have
So the question is, how does
48
this
units, we would be
affect traffic?
increasing it.
Is there a traffic study that needs to be done there? So are we going to have issues?
No, there isn't a traffic study that needs to be done. We're at the intersection of a collector and a major arterial. If this was a 50,000 square foot office building, you've got lots of workers coming in at one time and leaving at one time. Residential, 48 versus 64 units is going to be, or 8 units per acre versus 6 units per acre, which their development could ultimately be 80 units under 8 units per acre. It's pretty negligible in terms of the capacity of Route 3 and the commuter shed going out.
Questions?
Just for a visual, and I apologize, I had to be out of town for a funeral, so I missed this meeting. But for a visual, it's going to look something like Chapman Cove.
Mary Ann Chan, I believe, do you have
I do.
which is an example of what it would potentially look like. Now, understand that it still needs to go through preliminary and final site plan approval by the planning commission under, for the specific development plan. This is basically adjusting the zoning code for the special planning district.
And if I may, Mr. Mendel, to be clear about what we're doing, the SPD one, my firm, Brown, Rodeo Chandler, has been involved with Mr. Cohn back when this was all started. Attached townhomes, attached row houses, as they were called, were always envisioned as part of this project. However, when you dig into the details of the zoning code, the guidelines did not have the right lot sizes and widths and depths for what you would traditionally have as a row home or an attached home. So that's really, in several meetings with Jonathan, with my team, we have met with him multiple times and discussed that this was really more of a refinement to the zoning code. The zoning code allows these types of homes. And this is one of the styles. It's 2-story. The starting base would be about 1,700 square feet. Price point anywhere from $225 to $260, depending on the options that were chosen. And we're looking at approximately 61 units. There's wetlands over there. That was why we needed to move the line over. The folks who live behind here are going to have a really nice wide wetland treed area behind. This is all pushed up closer to the main roads. And so we've really have met with the city quite often to stay consistent with what the commercial zones presently permit.
This is the same thing, it was similar, I guess, on Route 18 by the Abbeville Road to the west of it. And it's very similar. I think their price point's a little different. I think it's like 120 to 150 or something like that. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, if it's the area that I'm thinking about, they never actually finished that project. They started it and they.
They're still working on it. It's by Liberty Plaza,
Yes.
right at Route 18.
Yes.
I think these are similar, but these are a little more pricier.
These are going to be 3-bedroom, full basements. This is going to provide solid, single-family living to folks who maybe don't want to own a yard
So they're gonna be town, they're not gonna be rentals, they're gonna be
These
townhomes?
are going to be fee simple only.
Okay.
That was why we needed to make sure that the lot lines and the SPD were accurate. Jonathan can tell you that what was there presently really didn't fit a standard townhome. You had a minimum lot size of 40 feet. You don't have an attached townhome that one unit is 40 feet wide.
So-
Not here.
Are you guys using is it a cluster home then? Are you doing a cluster home development or what, I mean, just so I know who's gonna be maintaining, it's gonna be,
HOA.
so it'd be a cluster home with common properties all around the buildings?
I don't know
Is
what
that-
it would be.
I just wanna know, cause
Cluster
then
home.
we'll get the calls, you know, when somebody doesn't clean their yard up.
Yeah, it'll be an HOA, and they will all be part of the presentation to the planning commission.
Okay.
And just to be clear then, Jonathan or Marianne, it gives more, the houses on Waterbury, there'd be more space than
Yes.
behind them.
Correct. That's on the map amendment.
The conceptual plan, site development plans that they propose, is basically there's a question of, there's a lot of a wetland area that has either been mapped, made formal versus the last time this SPD, when this SPD was created. So, it can be set back 170 feet or so from the west, from the east property lines of those houses on Waterbury.
And just to, spatial wise, are we talking about roughly where the huge mound of dirt is right now? Is that kind of the?
Approximately, yeah. So most of this development would be to the east of that mound.
Just so I know, that's my ward, so in case I get called.
Sure, I
There's a lot of neighbors that are paying attention to everything that goes on.
But, and this is also something that Acme's looking for, more rooftops, is hopefully going to encourage them to finally get moving on this project. I know they had to move forward and get their plans approved because of this. So, we're moving forward. We're hoping that so far has motivated them to get done what they were on track to do last year. They're now a step further.
Did you say it's 170 feet from the property line?
I don't have the exact measurements, it's already.
Oh, okay.
We moved our line about 80 feet over in order to accommodate some low-lying wetlands that seem to be increasing as we sit here.
All right, well, public hearing's the next thing we do, right?
Yep.
It's gonna be at the next council meeting, I assume?
The
No,
public
on
hearing
October
would be on October 9th.
Oh, October
under
9th,
the way
that's
the days are falling.
Okay.
So,
All right, well, thanks for the information.
Thank you.
18155, we have application to establish revitalization district per ORC 430181.
So we received a request from John and Patty Stahl to create this revitalization district. And what it does is, it was a change in Ohio law, actually, that we met with the legislators and asked them whether they would consider this. It had been used in other areas for economic development. And it lets the city identify an area. And we did that to expand, instead of just the historic district, down to pick up Lafayette Road and Elmwood and South Broadway, and then north even to Friendship Street. I think you have all of the information. And there are restrictions in the RCA that you can see. It allows up to 15 local liquor permits within this district, but only one permit for every 5 acres of land. And it's not to encourage bars. You'll notice there in the first paragraph that at least 75% of the total receipts have to be for food and meals. So it's a mix of alcohol with restaurants. And I think today you were each emailed a letter of support from Medina County Economic Development, the Chamber of Commerce, and Main Street Medina. So Patty Stahl is here, as requesting this. If there are questions of her, Kimberly and I feel this is a good opportunity for redevelopment of some of the less used or less upkept properties within this identified area. And we also know that, and the council has approved that twice for us, to bring liquor permits from outside of the city into the city to transfer them. But what we learned is that costs the business owner a substantially more amount, a higher amount, than if they simply went to the liquor commission and there was a liquor permit available. So we're trying to look out for the business to get started.
So the boundary is mainly the commercial areas around the square and eliminating the residential areas, it looks like.
It encompasses all the land that's zoned C2, that's privately owned.
Does it also take consideration, I mean, in the overlay districts and stuff like that that we have, is there any issues with development of use of liquor permits in those areas that we'd want to consider now?
The
or-
transitional corridor overlay district and the historic district do not regulate land use. They only regulate aesthetics and design, building design and site planning.
Is there anything in our comprehensive plan in the future that might change that we want to make sure that this covers? Because I think you could, or are we not allowed to have the district in any residential area now? Like if something happened in the future, do we just amend it, or how does that work? If we want to change the area covered?
Well, the max that you could do under the revitalization district is 100 acres, and the map that's proposed to you this evening is already at 80 and a half. So there's not really that much more we could add to it. If you wanted to amend it, we'd probably have to go back to the state of Ohio to amend the district, because this has to be filed with the state liquor control.
Yeah, you're good. No, I was just trying to make sure that we do it, right the first time. If we want to include other properties, we do it.
That was done through, the only areas that are still contiguous to this area would be further up North Court Street into the MU zone land, past the post office to Union. That's the only other commercially zoned land up North Broadway where there's MU zoning, or on West Liberty where there's MU zoning. It was determined that those areas kind of really start transitioning, are very close proximity to residential areas on average. And you want to kind of keep that positive feedback loop synergy of a tighter area, 80.5 acres of a tight area, but not to distribute it further around the throughout the rest of the commercially zoned land adjacent to the map that you have in your packet.
Okay. Questions?
I just have one, and I know that we had talked about this at the beginning when we had talks about this. Have you had any pushback from business owners currently that their liquor license currently holds value? So if they were to go out of business today, their liquor license at least is something that they could sell off and recoup a little bit of money. But if we have numerous liquor licenses still available, that would lose its value. Have you heard from any business owners who are concerned about that?
I have not.
Okay.
And it's a good point that you bring up, because should this pass, and we bring in, say, a new restaurant, and they apply for the D5L permit, they're gonna pay the $2,344, just like they would a regular D5 permit. And that is part of the problem with, like, the two that we transferred in. I don't know what they paid for those on the outside market, if you will. But I'm sure it's an exorbitant amount of money, and that just puts another hardship on that business that's trying to maybe establish a restaurant. So we see this as a benefit, like for the infill project that we just talked about. If we want to bring in a new restaurant, if someone wants to buy Hawkins and redevelop that into a restaurant, Farmers Exchange, or maybe other redevelopment opportunities, they try to go get a D5 permit right now. City quota is 15. There's one license available. There are already 2 applications on file, so someone is not going to get that. So this would allow us to bring in more of those permits, and the city would have control over those permits. So once that geographic area is established, those D5L permits cannot leave that zone. They have to stay in that zone.
And I'm sorry, I didn't hear everything. You're saying, because we're having more permits, the people who paid a lot of money, all of a sudden now, they paid all that money for no reason. And they're gonna be very upset.
possible.
How many permits are in here right now? Do we know?
For the D5s, there's a total of 15 permits that are assigned to the city of Medina, and I looked on the liquor control website as of August 20th. There's only one D5 permit available, and there are 2 applications on file. So that means someone is not going to get it. So the D5L, which is what we're proposing this evening, would allow another 15 permits.
Well, I guess the only question, I mean, you're correct, I mean, people who paid $40,000 for the permit to open their,
But we don't really know what other people have paid.
well, I'm just making a
We're
number up, but we
just
know they probably paid more because people hold those like they're
Yeah.
gold. Yeah, they are. So I guess, are they gonna be okay with that? I mean, we're expanding the use, of course, but people might not be too happy that they overpaid because they didn't have this opportunity, but I guess it didn't exist at the time they bought it.
On the opposite side of that, the people who are coming in will be very happy that they can
Yeah.
get one for, you
Right.
know,
And the
it's not
people-
gonna be something they have to try really, really hard to get.
Right. The people that have already purchased privately the liquor license, this won't affect them, so if they decide to, well, you know, leave their business, they can still sell it at a profit, the city.
Probably not a profit, but they sell it.
Sell it and recoup some cost.
Well, I mean, they could sell it for more than what the city would be offering the permit for.
Well, if there's more available, no, because if I was coming in, I'd just pay the
Right.
permit fee to get one.
Until those are all used up.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I think it speaks to the bigger issue, though, than that. I think the bigger issue is that this is exactly, this is in a sense really what we talked about. Jonathan, what was that plan I got from you last week?
The downtown strategic
The
development.
downtown strategic development plan that recognized underdeveloped areas of the city that could be redeveloped into, and be productive for businesses or for residences. But this one, really, if you look at where it is, all of it's C2. It doesn't disturb neighborhoods, but it does look at the areas where you could come in and you could have productive business and we could make use of this space. And you know, we all know that the center city is built, is 100% occupied. And folks want to come here, and this is a great carrot, you know, or leverage, or whatever you want to call it, in order to promote that. I think it's good.
And I noticed you left the square in there. Are you hopeful at some point that that rule will change? That no alcohol in the square?
No, we're not gonna let it on the public park.
Oh, no, but I mean, the park's still part of it, and I guess you can always carve that out.
Yeah, it's within the outline, but it's not permitted in the park.
Well, I know right now, but I said, are you hopeful that the law
That
will
was not
change?
the, that was not
No.
that was not the intent.
Is the park zone C2?
Well, it's included in
It's
the
surrounded.
district.
So could I go back to Laura's point for 1 second? So one of these businesses that maybe bought it on the black market would have the opportunity now, because there are other liquor permits available in the city, to put that on a black market to go somewhere else.
Okay.
They may
Oh, I
not be
got
able to
you.
use it here.
It could be
but let's-
transferred out,
let-
okay.
Yeah, let's say some other city has used all theirs up, and again, they'd have to petition their council to accept it. There's an economic benefit of having this new business open, just like the process we went through, but there may still be a market. It's just, we're trying to do what we can to try not to have a disadvantage to a new business starting, and this helps, I think, in that regard.
I also think, oh, I'm sorry, just one more thing. We also looked at the city of Worcester as an example. They incorporated this program, and they brought in 15 new restaurants into their downtown, their revitalization district.
Over what period of time?
They formed theirs in 2008, so within the last 10 years.
It's a lot.
Well, I'm glad we're building the parking deck, because
Yes.
it was impossible to get a parking space when you tried to go for dinner in Worcester, so at least we're forward thinking.
Are these 15 liquor licenses restricted to just this area, or could someone obtain one and then sell it on the black market?
No, so these stay here.
Has to stay there, yes.
Yeah, the D5L has to stay in this revitalization district.
I don't know who helped draw it, but why would Loggerheads not be included there? As it comes right to the corner of South Huntington there, but doesn't include where Loggerheads is at.
They don't serve there, do
Mhm.
Yes.
they? They have a
They do. And there's a lot next to them now, I just was trying to figure out what.
There's really not the gravel parking area that they have coming to the point at the traffic, at the railroad crossing signal. There's really not much area to do anything with. They have a liquor license. We just didn't want to extend it down that little stretch to something that really, doesn't have that expansion ability at that site.
It's just that the rest of that block down to Prospect is all older businesses, just like Loggerhead's building was at one point too. I guess I'm just trying to figure out if you wanted to do something with breweries or something close by each other, that those are all buildings that could potentially be.
And I bring up the point, you kept the square in, took out the courthouse. So somebody wants to do something on the square.
It's easier to draw the map, man.
Actually, your point is valid, because there are quite a few, there's a couple businesses for sale down there as well,
Right,
aren't
that's
there?
why I was thinking about that, if you wanted to have a.
Would there be a problem with just extending it to include those, Jonathan? We're still within the 100 acres.
We could adjust it down West Smith to the
Prospect.
commercially.
You're talking about on north?
Right on the
and
north
south.
side. Yeah, because there's several buildings there, which that's how Loggerheads was just.
Well, and then on the south side,
There's a couple
right
businesses.
across the creek, there are a couple businesses before you get to the residential on Prospect too. That's why I'm asking if you think both sides or just one side.
I was thinking more of just the north side there, because obviously Loggerheads exists there as is, and I just.
Would that, taking your point, would that open up some flexibility should somebody want to move business A out and move business B in, and they need a license?
Yeah, it's more opportunity.
Right,
Yes,
more
sir.
opportunity.
Yes,
So
sir.
since we're going up one side, why don't we do both sides?
Well, I guess on the south side, you do have a couple residential, then you have commercial buildings, then you're back to
You have two and
residential.
then back to residential.
Yeah, where on that north side, though, it's all.
From Huntington to
businesses, all
Prospect,
commercial.
yeah.
So the houses on the south side of that stretch of West Smith are zoned commercial next to the creek.
Oh, they
That little
are?
Triangle, they're actually zoned commercial. So they could benefit from redevelopment potentially at some point.
Okay.
You want to do both then?
So, I mean, stretching it down to the commercially, the C2 zone properties down there, down West Smith Road to Prospect, which includes all the way to the auto repair on the northeast corner of Prospect and Smith. I mean, a couple clicks on GIS, it's easy.
Everybody good with that?
Yes.
We'll
That
have to
expansion?
amend the map and the description and the stalls application to reflect those changes.
One question with regard to existing businesses. There's a business out there that does not currently serve food or alcohol. Could they participate if they should decide to change their business model? Can they take advantage of that?
And they're in this district?
And they're in this district, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
They can? Okay.
Yeah.
And again, I just want to mention to the council, the state legislators were very open to hear this. We actually met at a restaurant on the square, had a breakfast meeting with them, and they were able to take it down and get the law changed for us to permit this to happen, so.
Good. Move to approve as amended.
Second?
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. And finally, 18156, a resolution urging Governor Kasich to invest budget surplus in local governments. This is a letter, I think Kathy prepared a letter, I didn't sign it yet, but it's a letter to go down. A sample, just urging, since so much money was taken from us and now they have so much extra money, how about giving us back a little bit of that money so we can use it? Because what they want to do currently is just put it in the rainy day fund, and then the extra money, what did they say what they're going to do with the extra money?
Pretty sure it's going to go not to local government.
Not to the local government.
They were going to give it back to individuals, some kind of rebate.
Oh, rebate, yeah.
Tax rebate.
Yeah, we probably should get it back.
Now, there is a cap, just so the council's aware, I think I shared with Mr. Coyne in another conversation, but I was talking with Senator Obhoff, and there is a cap. I think they're like 68 million away from that. So if they get the surplus they're talking about, they can't put it all in the rainy day fund. They have to do something else with it, or change the law that limits how much the rainy day fund can be, because they're going to surpass that. So that just so you're aware.
Okay. Anybody have any problem sending a letter down to the governor?
No.
You just want to do the letter or the resolution?
We could do a
Both.
resolution. Want to do a resolution? That sounds more.
Can we do both?
Very.
We could do both too, yeah.
I mean, we just want to do it before his term ends because we know
I
what
mean,
can
if
happen
you
to
each
rainy day funds.
individually like to send a letter, you can do that as well.
Well, a resolution sounds more formal.
Official.
Yeah.
I will share with you, yeah, they're both okay. I don't have an issue with that. I can tell you, what I've been told is we're going to have to wait for a new governor to get the local government funds back. Even though he was fine calling people like me and asking cities to support his efforts when they were bonding the turnpike and expanding Medicare and Medicaid, all the things that he did. Now, he doesn't think the local government should have anything right now, so.
Well, we don't have much to do in
Wait.
Ohio, so.
I'm sorry?
We don't have much to do in Ohio, the local governments, evidently.
Right.
If you know, we pretty much support everything.
So what I was told is we're going to have to wait for the next governor. There is support in the legislatures to restore some of the local government funds, but they don't have the support in the governor's office right now.
Well, we can still send it, I guess.
Yeah, there's no harm in sending it.
So we're going to make a motion to both do a letter and a resolution.
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, now we can probably do the executive session now, unless everybody wants to wait till later.
No.
Wait, Greg. God, Greg has it.
Oh, yes.
Are you going to discuss the,
Oh, I speak, say aye first.
I guess we could. We received an addition that wasn't on the agenda. This is regarding an ordinance that we need to pass this evening regarding the annexation to pass an ordinance of, that we have the ability to supply, I guess, municipal services to this 31.94 acres. This 31.94 acres is involved in the project that's on the old Raid property, and I don't know who, Mayor or Kimberly, anybody want to explain why they want to annex in another 31 point, and whether or not Lafayette Township's objecting to it? I don't think they are, but it's part of the project.
Well, I'm not aware of Lafayette Township objecting to the annexation because it's going to be a dual jurisdiction type 2 annexation. The project is to accommodate a company called Ravago Americas, who's proposing a 506,000 square foot facility for distribution, logistics and distributions of resins, plastic resins. It's probably about a $60 million project, and they will be incorporating their own substation as well as a rail yard, because a lot of the product they'll be shipping in via rail and shipping out via rail.
So I don't know if anybody has an objection to that. I don't think Lafayette does. They're encouraging this. The project's on its way, and this is part of that project. So, any questions with that?
That'll be on the council.
So it's going to be added to the council agenda this evening.
Just one question with regard to JED on this, because it is dual jurisdiction, do we have to create a JED or we can
No,
just
this is
reserve knowledge?
they receive the property tax under the type 2 annexation, and we receive the income tax. So even though it would be part of the city, the property tax would still go to the township. I believe that's correct.
Okay, so we do get the income.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
We apologize for the late notice, but what happened was here on the 15th, August 15th, the attorney seeking the type 2 annexation for the company brought it to us, and we only have so many days by law to act on it without regard to council schedules and commissioner schedules and things like that. So we're just trying to stay within the context of the law.
So we'll have it on, as an addition to the council agenda this evening to vote on it. Okay?
With the emergency clause.
With the emergency clause.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Okay, I will make a motion then to enter into executive session at 7 PM for the purpose of having a conference with the law director concerning disputes involving the city which are the subject to pending or imminent court action, to include the mayor, the law director. Anybody have a good?
Second. Okay, clerk, please call the roll.
Leon?
Yes.
Colonel David?
Yes.
Schultz?
Yes.
Boyd?
Yes.
Simpson?
Yes.
Rose?
Yes.
Hepburn?
Yes. We'll be recessing the executive session to discuss imminent litigation, returning to adjourn from finance, taking no action of anything discussed in executive session. We're in recess.